reality, to knowing it, how difficult it is. And the fact that manhood hinged on I guess, usual things where, you have white men who, they have power, they have their jobs, they have authority, they're the, quote, head of the household. And you have black men that have constantly been attacked and under attack. I think that, their wife or the woman they're with excelling may feel threatening to them. They may feel emasculated. And then there are other men that wouldn't feel that way at all because they have a very, strong sense of who they are, and they're not threatened by, matter of fact, they feel enhanced by their partner, their wife, being able to excel. But surely, when you start thinking about what has happened to pit us against each other, that could very well be a real prominent problem as it relates to black men and black women.
Which is going to be exacerbated as this collapse continues.
But we can see it, you see. And if we can see it, the potential of it, we can intervene. That's my whole point. Let's get ahead of this thing because we know it's going to get deeper. Every economist that I know of, every single one of them says, it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And what does that mean for us? It's going to get worse. That means, sweetheart, if you can't get the job, if you can't do it, then I'm going to do it. But we're going to hold this thing together. We know it in advance.
Okay. Last break, last segment coming up after this. Having apologized on the break, and I apologize to you, but I want you both to know, all of you to know, that I raise the questions because I get so many questions about you because you've appeared many times. And also the question resonates in many areas of our society, how to grapple with the paucity of jobs and all of that. I wasn't so much focused on the ins and outs of your relationship, but just the impact of visibility, status, and sociological respect. And my question to you, therefore, is what lies ahead as the jobs recede, as, the schools close up? What's going to happen, and how are we going to grapple with that?
It's so interesting you should ask that. I just had a conversation this morning with someone who was talking about what he felt he wanted to have at the end of his life. When he looked at, he looked at his life, he looked at his job, and he wondered, he wasn't all that happy with his job, but he wondered about, at the end of the day. And it's interesting because all the things he said about himself that he was able to do, his work, and all that, I said, but what stands out is really what you've given. What people are going to have to do is find the value. We're going to be forced to see a value in other things, in what perhaps is the central most important thing in our community, and that's our relationships. We have to learn to value each other because in the absence of the things, you can't take any of this with you. At the end of the day, you can't take it with you. And all you have is what you give. The people you love, the people that love you. And when I think about myself, I say, in all of the missteps and the mistakes or whatever that I've done in my life, what stands out the most, what resonates with me, is the love. It's the people in my life I've touched. It's those women whose faces I looked into today who are struggling with HIV and AIDS. It's their eyes and said, what did I do? What could I do to help make it better for us, for them? And as the paucity of jobs, as we begin to see this kind of disequilibrium, we have to begin to look, well, what is most important? What is really most important? What should we value? Perhaps it's the thing, getting back to, to basics in the sense that now you're forced to. During segregation, we were forced to have to deal with one another. We didn't have a choice. You couldn't go anywhere else. You had to deal with each other. And perhaps in a strange way, America is being forced to deal with itself. We're being forced to look at those things that are, to some degree, the foundation of where it all came from, which was the family, the unit, the coming together, the whole idea of this collective. That's what I think it can be. It can be something that is going to really spur on this idea that, come on, we've got to come together. And then the flip side of that is if we don't.
Well, you know, history tells me that in the 60s there was a lot of rivalry between members of Dr. King's staff and Dr. King. There were no whites in the Audubon Ballroom when Malcolm was assassinated.
That's right.
All right. There's been a whole history of interfighting. What does that stem from?
Well, very clearly, I believe it stems from a real despising of oneself. I think Carter G. Woodson was very, very clear when he talked about the miseducation of the Negro. And I talk about the fact that he said that the educated Negro has been taught to despise those that look like him. So therefore, when he chooses a shop, he chooses a shop with a white grocer because he's been told that the black grocer is dirty. Right? And he begins to say that if the black grocer is dirty, he can never become clean. And so it's the self-denigrating piece.
It's not coming about in the classroom for our young people. They're not getting this kind of nutrition that they need. So where's it going to come from if the homes are suffering the trauma of which we speak, and worse? You know, where is this uplift going to take place?
On the ground. It's always come from the ground. It's always been on the ground. This show, however many people can view it, it gets passed along. This is going to have to be a grassroots effort. It's going to have to be. And it is going to happen from the ground. And I believe it can and will. You
admonish then viewers to think about getting together and talking serious shop.
In advance, right now, insisting upon, and I don't care where you are, in the churches, in the barbershops, in the hair salons, in the community center, at the game, people are going to have to start paying attention to this, because this is one of those waves that we can see coming. This is the tsunami we can see coming.
Is this intergender or intra? In other words, should the men talk shop with men and the women talk shop with women, or should there be a discourse between
all of the above? I was waiting for you to finish, because it's all of the above. We all need to do this. We all do. And I think women in particular, because women have a special, literally women have an ability during crises to not resort to fight or flight, but to care and nurture. We have a different, literally a different hormone that pops off.
And we don't. Men don't.
You men don't. Poor things.
Where'd
that
you get that?
Testosterone comes in, and then the cortisol, and you just check out.
Okay.
UCLA study.
So really, they taught that.
It's a UCLA study that shows that women actually live longer. They believe they live longer. Women who have groups of other women with them that interact with one another, that nurturing piece becomes the linchpin. We need to use it.
Well, I was talking to a brother in the hood the other day, and he was telling me that those who have got us in the bondage we're in sat down and planned it. And if we're going to get out of it, we're going to have to sit down and plan it. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, we did. We did it before we had these vehicles, right? When folks were moving cross-country to the north, when we had the migration, that was all word of mouth and on the ground. And we took care of each other, and we were able to do it. Absolutely.
All right. Dr. Joy, this has been a joy.
It's been a joy for me, too.
Until the next go-around, thanks for being with us. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And let me know how you feel and what your thoughts are. Good afternoon.